There's a specific kind of silence that happens when you're standing in your kitchen at 7 in the morning, coffee in one hand and a stack of envelopes in the other. Envelopes you've been quietly relocating from counter to drawer to counter again for about 3 weeks. Not because you forgot. You didn't forget. You know exactly what's in them. You just haven't decided what to do about them yet. And somewhere in the distance between knowing and doing, your brain has already started building the worst version of what happens next. A repo truck, a court summons, something involving a sheriff in your front door. And the strange thing is, that movie feels more real than anything written on the actual paper inside those envelopes. My name is Daniel, and I've spent an uncomfortable amount of time studying what debt actually does versus what we imagine it does. And the gap between those two things is where most of the financial damage in this country quietly happens. Here's what I want to start with, because it changes everything that comes after. The fear of not paying your bills is not irrational. It's just misdirected. You're afraid of the right category of thing, but pointed at the wrong specific threats. And because the fear is unfocused, it tends to do something predictable. It makes you react to whoever's loudest rather than whoever is actually most dangerous. That distinction, loud versus dangerous, is the whole game. And almost nobody explains it clearly, because the people who benefit from your confusion are the same people writing those letters. Let's start somewhere almost nobody starts, which is with a simple question. What type of debt are we actually talking about? Because not all unpaid bills behave the same way, and treating them like they do is exactly how people drain their savings, paying the wrong things first. Broadly, your debts fall into three completely different categories. There's unsecured debt, credit cards, medical bills, where you put up nothing physical as collateral, just your word. There's secured debt, your car loan, your mortgage, where an asset is attached and can be taken back. And then there's government debt, which is taxes and federal student loans, and that one plays by a rule book that no private company is legally allowed to use. We're going to walk through all three, and I'll tell you right now, the order of how dangerous they are will probably surprise you. Start with the one that gets the most airtime in those threatening letters, the credit card. You miss a payment, the date passes, and in the first 24 hours, the sum total of consequences is a late fee, somewhere around $40, give or take, depending on your card's terms. That's it. What most people don't know is that your credit score doesn't even take a hit until you're a full 30 days past due. Not 1 day late, not 2 weeks late, 30 days. Which means if you missed a payment, panicked, and covered it on day 19, the credit bureaus never found out. As far as your score is concerned, it didn't happen. People have genuinely emptied emergency funds sprinting to pay a bill they had a grace window on the whole time because nobody told them the window existed. Now let's follow that credit card debt further down the timeline, because the math gets dark in a specific way that I think is worth understanding clearly. Say you're carrying a balance of $6,000 at 22% interest, and you genuinely can't make the minimum this month. Around 60 days in, something called a penalty APR kicks in, and many cards will push your rate up to close to 30%, applied to your entire existing balance, not just future purchases. On $6,000, that rate jump alone adds somewhere near $500 a year to what you owe. You don't get notified about this in bold letters. It's in the terms you agreed to years ago and haven't thought about since. At 6 months, the bank charges the debt off, which sounds ominous, but all it actually means is they've decided to stop chasing you themselves and sell your debt to someone else. Here's the part that should make you pause. They sell that $6,000 debt for somewhere around $240, 4 cents on the dollar. The person who buys it then gets to pursue you for the full balance. That's the model. Buy the distress, collect the face value. If you found any of that useful, and I think you might want to stick around for the second half, consider subscribing, because this channel exists precisely for the financial explanations that somehow never make it into the mainstream conversation. Now here's where the story takes a turn that most people miss completely, because while the credit card has been slowly sending you letters for 6 months, your car loan has been doing something else entirely.
In a large number of states, your lender can legally repossess your vehicle the moment you're in default, and default can mean a single missed payment. No court order, no warning letter, no 30-day grace period. The Federal Trade Commission has been fairly direct about this. In many states, a lender can send someone to take the car off your property without telling you first. You walk outside Monday morning and your parking spot is empty. Your first thought genuinely might be that it was stolen. The psychological whiplash of that moment, realizing it wasn't stolen, it was taken legally, and you still owe money on it, is something people don't fully anticipate. And then comes the piece that really raises the temperature. After they auction the car, usually to a dealer at a deep discount, if the sales price doesn't cover your remaining loan balance, you owe the difference. They take the asset, sell it below value, and bill you for the shortfall. The credit card gave you 6 months of breathing room. The car can be gone by the weekend. That's not a metaphor. That's the actual timeline. Rent follows its own logic, and I think it's one of the most misunderstood areas in all of personal finance psychology. People imagine that falling behind on rent leads almost immediately to their belongings on the street corner, and that image, stuff in garbage bags, neighbors watching, is genuinely terrifying in a way that overrides rational thinking. But the legal reality is that your landlord cannot remove you themselves in any state under any circumstances. What they have to do is file an eviction lawsuit, attend a court hearing, win that hearing, and then wait for a court official, not the landlord, to execute the order. In states where courts move slowly or where you contest the case, that process can take 3 to 5 months from the first missed payment to actual removal. That's not permission to stop paying rent, it's information, and information is the thing that lets you make deliberate choices rather than panicked ones. Then there's the category that genuinely deserves the fear most people are directing at their Visa bill. Government debt, federal student loans, and taxes operates on a completely different set of rules, and those rules are tilted in a way that should make anyone with this type of balance sit up straight. Federal student loans don't report you as late until 90 days in, and you're not technically in default until 270 days have passed. That sounds generous until you understand what happens the moment default is declared. The Department of Education can garnish your wages without filing a lawsuit. No judge, no courtroom, no summons. They send a letter to your employer and take up to 15% of your disposable pay off the top. No private credit card company has this ability. No landlord has this ability. It's a power that would be considered an illegal seizure if anyone else tried it. The exits exist. Income-driven repayment plans, rehabilitation programs, but they require you to speak up. Silence, with government debt specifically, is the one response that guarantees the worst outcome. And then there's the IRS, which I'll put plainly, it is the one bill on this entire list that you never ever ignore. The penalty for not paying your taxes is 0.5% per month, survivable if painful. The penalty for not filing is 10 times worse, 5% per month. People avoid filing because they can't pay, thinking they're delaying the pain. What they're actually doing is multiplying it by 10. File first, even if the check isn't ready. That one act alone, the filing, cuts your exposure by 90%. And if you let a tax balance grow large enough, the IRS has the legal authority to have your passport revoked. You can be stopped at an airport. That's nothing any credit card company can ever do to you. The loud debts rattle your mailbox. The quiet one can pull you off a plane. So here's the reframe I want to leave you with, because I think it matters more than any specific number or timeline. The damage most people suffer from debt isn't caused by the debt itself. It's caused by the response to fear, specifically paying whoever yells loudest instead of whoever can actually take something real. Triage is not irresponsibility. Looking at every bill you have, sorting it by actual consequence, and protecting your shelter before your credit score. That's not giving up. That's the only calm, rational move available when money is short. Roof first, utilities next, then the secured things you genuinely need to keep your life running, like the car that takes you to the job. Then the government, because it doesn't need a judge and doesn't get tired. And last, Last, the unsecured debt that has been screaming at you from the mailbox for months because it needs a lawsuit, a judge, a court order, and a favorable state to do anything meaningful to you. If this kind of thinking is useful to you, the subscribe button is right there. This is exactly what this channel is built for. And before you go, I want to ask you something I'm genuinely curious about. What's the bill that stresses you out most right now? And after watching this, do you think it actually deserves the amount of mental space you've been giving it? Drop your answer in the comments. I read more of them than you'd expect.